Thank you very much, program facilitator. Good morning. One thing that I did not include in my bio is the campus that I am from. Whenever you say I'm from Northwest University, the next question is which campus? But if you say I'm from CPUT, I'm from UNISA, nobody bothers to say which campus. But the moment you say Northwest University, which campus? So I will not answer that question. We have 3 campuses, 2 in the Northwest Province, as you may know, and 1 in Gauteng, which is based in Vanderbijl Park. So I was invited to talk to you about how librarians can respond to researchers and students' data literacy training needs. And I could not resist the invitation. The last time I was here in Cape Town, around end of July, my visit coincided with the so-called winter rains. And it was quite difficult for me to navigate Cape Town. I had meetings with colleagues, 2 library directors. It was quite a challenge. I'm saying this even today to Prof. Chiware. I never said I was in Cape Town, but I was here because of the conditions. I could not reach out. So thank you so much for the invitation to the organizers. It's so good and great to be here during such or over such a beautiful day. So this is the topic in support of the main theme. Let me see if I can turn to the next slide. So this is my outline here. In about 2018, I got a request through our collaborators in Europe to take part in an international survey on data literacy and research data management throughout the world in the higher education context. And I gladly accepted that challenge. And these colleagues came from Turkey, France, and the United Kingdom. So with colleagues at Northwest University LIS, we represented South Africa in that international survey. So when I got this request, I said I was going to contextualize the presentation in the context of that international survey. What were the findings? Then from those findings, we can then address the question, how can librarians respond to the identified needs of researchers and students? So this is basically the context of this presentation. So we distributed our online survey to all the 26 public universities in South Africa. But as you know, in most surveys, the response rate is not quite encouraging. But we have also learned from literature that the moment you have 100 or you reach 100 mark, proceed with your study. So regardless of the fact that the response rate was fairly low, we got 141 responses. And out of those 141 responses, we deemed 140 to be usable, and we proceeded with our study. So what triggers the need for data literacy in our institutions? There is a statement that we all know from the National Research Foundation on open access to research publications, which came out in 2015. And of course, the South African Data Management Plan as also initiated by DIRISA. And of course, the academic library's growing role in research data services and research data management, and of course, the aspect of open science. We have heard this morning a number of definitions around data literacy. There are so many literacies, as we know. There's one research professor who is studying these literacies, Prof. Bosire Onyanja. The last time, I think he shared over 50 literacies with us at some conference. And we are not bothered about that because the focus is purely on data literacy, which comprises competence required by researchers at all levels to work with data. And when we say researchers, we are also including students, because at some point they are also researchers. So data literacy is the recognition of the need for data, creation or search for data, critical assessment of data and their sources, management, archiving, sharing, use of data, as well as ethical and legal aspects. So there are common characteristics that we see in this definition with the broad area of information literacy, which is quite interesting for me. What were the objectives of our study? We wanted to determine the attendance of formal data literacy training by researchers, and also establish the aspects of data literacy training received by researchers. We also wanted to verify the views of the researchers regarding the necessity of data literacy training, and to ascertain the data literacy training requirements of the researchers. There is a lot of literature around data literacy, and this is part of the literature that we reviewed at that particular point. And we tried to address the question, what prompts the need for data literacy? And I've already indicated that there are requirements from government side and also funders and even publishers who require that the final output or the research data itself before the final output should be shared widely, and also issues around capacity to store massive amounts of data in an intensive data environment. So there were quite a number of articles already published by that time, as you can see here. And of course, our own here, Professor Chiware and colleagues had also done quite a lot of work around data literacy and the readiness of librarians and libraries to accommodate this new area of work. So the methodology, I've already indicated that we rolled out an online survey questionnaire, and our target was at the 26 public universities. And of course, our response rate there, 141 responses, and of course, we dealt with 140. Then in terms of ethical clearance, this was an international survey. There was an institutional clearance from one of the participating members. So we used that to also get clearance from the Northwest University. And once we circulated our online survey to other universities through the library directors, we were also requested to comply with their institutional requirements. What were the findings of this study in terms of attendance of formal data literacy training? We discovered that 59% of the respondents had already been trained on the aspects that we shared with them. And data management plans, DMPs, only had 7% trained and 93% were missing out. In terms of metadata training, Only 2% had participated in such a training. Probably this is because of the fact that metadata issues are normally regarded as a preserve for libraries. Then version row, a mere 3% had been trained, and file naming best practices, 5% had it covered. Data citation styles, only 18% had received training. And what is the takeaway on this? Major training gaps in core data management skills. Findings on necessity to have formal data literacy training. In terms of formal data literacy training, only 2% researchers see value in formal data training or data literacy training. Surprisingly, 98% believed that it was not necessary to have formal data literacy training. Training willingness, low interest also was realized on this aspect, and our takeaway message here is that researchers may prefer self-led or integrated data skills over formal courses. Lack of incentives may also contribute to this low interest. Normally, our research recognize the final output in terms of publications. There are huge incentives, but very less on the data aspect. Findings on data literacy training requirements. In terms of data management plans, DMPs, 58.6% needed training. And in terms of metadata training, 48.6% said they needed training. File naming consistency, 47.7% needed training. And in terms of data citation styles, 37.9% needed training. What are the insights here? The majority seek training on DMPs and metadata, highlighting key focus areas. Here's the summary. The results of the study exposed deficits in data literacy training levels of South African researchers. There was a general lack of training in areas such as DMPs, version control of data sets, consistency in file naming, and data citation styles. There was an apparent desire by some researchers to outsource some of the key data management functions. We have already spoken about metadata, which is normally a function or a capability of libraries. Results further point to DMPs and metadata training as priority areas for researchers in South Africa. How can librarians then respond to these identified needs? And for me, it's no longer a question of how can, but how must librarians respond to the needs? We need to advocate and continue to advocate for data literacy. And I'm excited about this initiative because it is part of advocacy. Libraries should act as hubs for citizen science. I was so excited about the previous presentation here, the collaboration between the novice teacher and, of course, the Western Cape government. But as I looked at the profiles, I realized that the novice teacher perhaps is just a project because the presenter is really a veteran educator. Then we need to create awareness. Very few researchers may actually be aware of data services that are available in our libraries. Collaboration with relevant key stakeholders. In fact, in libraries, collaboration is not an option. It is a must. It's like really a husband and wife in a home. They have to collaborate to fend for their children. If one of those two collaborators pull out of that collaboration, then the children are likely to suffer. So collaboration for libraries is a must. Intensify data literacy skills training. Provide expertise in developing data management plans. Provide data literacy education. Take advantage of the unique position of cross-disciplinary pollinators. As libraries, we work across all faculties, all disciplines. So we need to take advantage of that. Create and develop LibGuides. We are already doing that, but are these LibGuides known, widely known? In some cases, the answer is not. Develop training videos and host webinars on data literacy. Let's continue to, as librarians, facilitate access to data. And let's use the already established information literacy programs. I know CPUT has done very well on information literacy. So let's take advantage of that position and embed DL aspects or data literacy aspects into the curriculum. I've already acknowledged that we are already working within the research landscape, and more importantly, in this case, the research data life cycle. Librarians should participate in the phase of research that precedes publishing. And this is the planning phase of any research project. Let's strive to be involved. But for the researcher to realize and recognize that there is a resource within the library building, you need to demonstrate that capacity. Then they will know that there is a resource and they will call upon you to be part of that particular project. Normally, we are so much involved in terms of data right at the end, where we seek to preserve and also to promote the reuse of data. But I'm encouraging you to get involved from the outset. Librarians are already making data fair in terms of making it findable, accessible, interoperable, and also reusable. Librarians should assist with the assessment of the impact of research data. And for data to be usable, it must be discoverable and accessible and be in a usable file format. In conclusion, we need to adapt to researcher preferences. An opportunity for librarians to reinvent formalized digital literacy, to engage and reach out to researchers, provide accessible researcher-centered learning experiences that align with their preferences and real-world applications. When the keynote speaker spoke here, I could see an opportunity for collaboration. And I guess it's already happening. This is why we have him here today. Strategic awareness and engagement, new pathways for librarians to enhance engagement. focusing on researchers' areas of interest ensures a ripple effect in data literacy awareness and skills acquisition. Building a collaborative future instead of seeing the rejection of formal data literacy training as a barrier, librarians can view it as an opportunity to innovate and collaborate with researchers, fostering continuous learning, making data literacy integral to research excellence. We realized through our international survey that researchers really rejected the idea of formalizing data literacy training because they have so much on their plate. You ask me why. So they rejected, but let's take that as an opportunity to engage further. Data literacy should motivate researchers to openness, i.e. sharing data with others. So through this international survey, we had two main outcomes. The first outcome, we published an article on data sharing practices in South Africa, where again, we realized that researchers were willing to use other researchers' data, but they were not willing to share their own data. Very interesting. That was the first outcome. It was also presented during the Data International Week in Botswana. And once my colleague came there, Dr. Sifiwe Bangani, he previously worked here. He said, hey, Dr. Moyo, there was so much interest about this presentation. Let's be quick on publishing. And we ran with it, and it was published. We followed up with this outcome on data literacy, where we then realized that researchers were rejecting the idea of formalizing data literacy into the curriculum. So the question I want to leave you with, do we take the rejection on its value, or we need to continue advocating? We need to continue creating awareness around data issues? It's the question that I want to leave with you. Thank you very much.